All right. Welcome everybody to the June Tableau Prep user group. Happy to have you guys here with us. Today we've got some cool sessions coming up from Tore and Wilf. Excited to see what they've got to share with us. And we've also got a couple of things real quick to share, just Tableau Prep related. So I can get there we go. Jack, Jenny, and myself lead the prep user group. And since this one today is more favorable to the Americas time zone, that's why I'm hosting today. If you want to present, you got some interesting use cases, tips and tricks, feel free to sign up, send us your session proposal, and we would love to have you share how you are using prep. We've also got our Slack channel, Prep Playground, where you can just stay in touch with folks. If need help with something, there's also a few channels in there with where the devs are in as well. So it's a good place to chat and also get some help when you need it. From Tableau conference, there was a couple of exciting things that were announced for prep coming up. Sentiment analysis being one of them, and then the Einstein Copilot being another. And we've seen a couple of things with Einstein Copilot. We've seen, I think it was teased a little bit at TC23, although back then it looked a little bit different. And so these updates to it, the changes, being able to see that in practice should be exciting as well. So looking forward to seeing how those get used, and actually the sentiment analysis as well. I'm curious to see what that looks like, how it actually plays with the data, and how much you have to configure it and fine tune it to get the results you're looking for. 2024.2 is coming pretty soon, so we'll get to see that Copilot, and then also some more custom schedules for Prep Conductor. I know it's something that I've had some frustrations with in the past, of really kind of being limited to those 1 hour, 2 hour refreshes. You can't really fine tune the timing of those, so it'll be good to be able to adjust those a little bit. And then also writing to S3 buckets. That'll also be helpful, maybe giving you an extra way to set up your pipeline and continue to use prep to help move your data where you really need it. And so now we've got our speakers coming up, and so I will hand the floor over to Tore.
Thank you. So that there were some questions also about recordings, if it will be available, and you can answer that.
Yes, we will. The recording will be available shortly after the session is over.
Yeah, and then there was questions also about have to pay extra for Einstein Copilot with the new Tableau Plus thing.
Yes, and, that is my understanding from. I think originally it was Tableau Pulse. I think now we can kind of see the way things are moving. It will probably be either Tableau Pulse or Tableau Plus that will be required to use that Einstein Copilot.
Yeah, and also seen some of that, but I haven't seen any pricing or anything. But
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Looks like it's a bundle thing, and you need to be on cloud, and obviously, but yeah, nothing is free in this world anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start by sharing my screen. If I manage to get it up there. Feel free to use the chat if you have any questions during the presentation, and I'll try to answer as we go along. There we go. My name is Tore Levinsen. I'm from Bergen, Norway, so on the west coast of Norway. Changed my job 2.5 years ago, could pick my own title, so my title is the Tableau Jedi. that's the benefit of switching jobs, I guess. I've been working with Tableau or on Tableau for since version 7, so that's 12 years ago. I've done a lot of training, trained over 3,500 people in 16 countries so far on Tableau, desktop, prep, etc. I'm a user group leader for Norway Tableau user group, and there's a new international virtual user group that I'm going to be co-leading that will kick off after summer. We haven't done the introductions or the whole thing yet, but I can give a hint that it has something to do with maps. I'm also a Tableau ambassador for 3 years running. This one you've probably seen it, so we'll skip that. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to kind of a first high-level introduction to Tableau Prep, because I had some discussions with the 3Js that are running this group, because people who attend here are both people who are very experienced in prep or people who are interested in prep. So knowing what prep actually is will be the first bit, and then I'm going to switch over to prep and work on some Eurovision data and try to figure out why, or is it true that Norway is the country with the most last places in the history of Eurovision? I can't really believe that's true, but let's have some look at the data to prove this. So the whole idea of Tableau, you probably know, is to see and understand data, and the Tableau Prep Builder is part of this. We see that this is on the connect and analyze part of the process. So we connect to whatever data sources we need. There's some stuff you can do it in prep that you can't do in desktop, or a lot of things obviously, but there's a couple of things like until now, at least. In the future, Tableau has announced that you can also start joining and creating a relationship between published data sources. You can't do that on desktop yet. You can in the future. So that's something that you can do in prep, which is really good. And then, of course, after you start building whatever data sets that you have, you will share them on your Tableau server or on the cloud, and then you will use desktop to connect and build something. This is the workspace. So obviously, I'm going to go more into detail when we go into the prep window as well. I'm going to build a flow, but these are the key elements that we use. It's a very clean interface, very easy to start with, and it's really nice with this profile pane over here to profile and to profile your data to see what you're looking at. And then, of course, then you need to build a flow to some data, do whatever that's needed to get the intended result, and that flow can then be published locally, and you can run this flow by pressing the start button on your desktop, or you can publish the flow to a Tableau site. You still have to do that manually unless you have this data management add-on license where you can have prep conductor, where you can then schedule, as Jared mentioned earlier today as well, where you now also can decide when to schedule and not just follow the built-in schedules. And the end result don't necessarily need to go to a published data source on the Tableau server. It could also go to databases, the ones you see on the right-hand side. This is something that Tableau always works on to build, to expand. I remember when I started working with Tableau some 12 years ago, and the connection list to how many databases Tableau could connect to was like 15, 20 or something. Now it covers the entire screen when you click on it. So and that's also something that Jared mentioned. If you go to that Slack space or you go to ideas on the Tableau community, if there's any connection that you and your company or organization really need to save your data to, you have to put in an idea, or you have to talk with the devs, and you have to push them to add it to prep as well. There's a lot of things a lot of steps we can do. I'm going to use not all of them, but several of these when I'm going to build my flow. I've been talking a bit with Wilf as well, so hopefully I'm not going to steal all his tips for his session. Otherwise, that would be that would be a bit, or he would be a bit annoyed at me if I took all his tips. So I'm gonna give you some, but you stay for the entire session today because there's a lot of cool tips that Wilf will share afterwards as well. But I'm going to go through some of these steps during this presentation. I can skip this what's coming because that was already shared by Jared. One thing that I see at a lot of clients is that they have these licenses, they have the creators, they have the explorers, and they have the viewers. What a lot of what a lot of these customers and organizations don't necessarily know is that when you have a creator license, you have the desktop, you have a server or cloud license, but you also have the prep license. Some customers think that oh, we have to pay extra for it, so that's why we don't use it, or they don't even know that they have it or have access to it at all. So this is something that just make sure if you have a creator license, and you're allowed, of course, by your management to install and use prep, you can use the same login license key or server login as you have for your desktop. And then I mentioned before, you do have to have this prep conductor if you would like to run these scheduled prep flows on the server or in the cloud by having this data management add-on. That also brings you catalog and other type of features. And then, of course, this whole picture, especially the picture down here, will change a bit when we Tableau Plus is now introduced, and we have Einstein and everything else, Tableau Pulse, etc. So we need to update this for the future because we don't know we don't know yet all the details of what will happen. So this is what I'm going to be switching over to. I have some data sources. I have some locations for where Eurovision has been held over the years. Over the time, I've collected some data. So I have some data from 2010 to 2017 when it comes to points and countries. I have a simple one from 2018. I have the latest results in here. And actually, until earlier today, I didn't have the data from before 2010 for the scores and everything. But for you, and also to prove the point of having Norway being the country it is, and with the beautiful music we do love to share with the world, we'll have to get all the data. So I do have it. I have been cheating a bit in the sense that I've connected to my data sources like this, but the data is not necessarily as good as expected, unfortunately. So basically like real life. So the first tip is, now I have the locations and the different scores in here, but as I told you, I did manage to get the Eurovision data from 1957 till 2009. And I did use, I'm not a coder, so I don't write in Python or anything. I use Chat GPT a lot, but apparently he is stupid enough to not give me what I'm expecting. I give all the instructions where to find the data, how to get it, and I get this Python script, and it gives me 0 results. Because I, would like to try the new features out there. What I eventually did was to go to Tableau Public. I did find a visualization of data over time, all the data from Eurovision, downloaded this data, this workbook. And this is something you can do as well. Every time you find something that you're interested in on Tableau Public, and the author has given the opportunity to either download the data or download the entire workbook, download it, and then you can find the data. So instead of then just getting the data directly from that workbook, because it was a bit unorganized for my use, I just created a new sheet, selected the fields that I wanted, exported into Excel, and then my tip here is to just drag and drop any data source directly into the view over here. You see that it connects automatically. It only has one table, so I'm going to view this data. And we see that I have the countries, I have the year, and then we have the good old friend measure names and measure values coming from that export, which is fine because we have all these steps that we can use in Tableau Prep, and one of them is this pivot. And normally we pivot, or not normally, that depends of course on your data, but I do a lot of columns to rows pivot because that's how Tableau likes the data organized in that way. But we can also click on this and change, instead of doing columns to rows, we can do rows to columns. So we're going to pivot the other way as well. So I'm going to drag in first my measure names. That's the fields, the rows to columns. And then I'm going to put in my measure names down here. And you see that now I have my countries, I have my years, and then I have points and rank along pane down. So obviously this is a table calculation originally in the underlying data source. So I'm going to change this rank along, etc., to just be rank. And then I'm good to go for this particular data set. There was a question, can you connect to a folder so the data is updated whenever a file is added to that folder? I haven't tried, so I'm not sure if that actually works. We could, of course, just do like this and drag in the entire Eurovision folder, see what happens. It doesn't seem to be giving me exactly. It's just now looking at this Eurovision text file, and there's no tables found. Jared, do you have any, or Wilf, do you have any comments on that?
There is an option within your data sources to connect to multiple data sources within a folder, and you can use a wildcard for the file names and import them all in bulk, so that if you add a new data source to that folder the next time, it'll import all of the data for you.
Yeah, but that's more when you connect to like this one. If you connect to a data source like this, you can go to tables and say union multiple tables.
Yeah.
So this one, I do that quite a lot. So if I would have had multiple Eurovision ones, I could do Eurovision and a star, and it would take everything that starts with Eurovision or looks like something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not going to do that there. Somebody also asked if Take On Me from a-ha was launched during the Eurovision. No, that's a proper song, proper pop song. So that's not part of Eurovision. Great. So I have my data in here. I always add a clean step just to have a look at the data. I think I forgot to rename it, so I'm just going to do that again. Or I did undo too many times. And then I always love to have organize my data in here. It doesn't really matter. It's the end result that matters anyways, but I like to have it. So I have my years, I have my countries, points, and rank. And then when I click on any of these, you get these blue highlighter of what data belongs to the different years. Or if I would like to look at Norway, we see that Norway has 0 points in 1981, which is perfect. And then we look at all of these and we see that, okay, I have my data for the first number of years. But I'm going to connect this data to the newest, to 2018, and also the historical scores. Let's first look at the historical scores. This is different than the other one. So this also needs to do pivoting, but the other way around, or maybe the standard way of doing the pivot, the way Tableau likes it. And I need to do 2 pivots because first I need to pivot my places or the ranking like this. So if you search for anything, you can select multiple fields, hold in the Shift key, just drag it in here. And then I don't have to create a new step and then do a new pivot, because I can click on this plus button to add another pivot in here. Now I just need to search for the points, do the same thing, select all of them, drag this one into the view, and I have my country region, I have my place, I have my pivot names, which is a bit weird because I need this to be the proper years in here. So I'm just going to add in a clean step to make sure that I'm going to fix this. There's multiple ways of doing this, and that's the beauty of both Tableau Prep and Tableau Desktop. You can do anything in multiple ways. If you want to do the simple one, you can go to the split values and either do an automatic split or just a custom split. The separator should be a space. I'm going to split off basically the years over here. And then I have my years that I can use and combine this with my other data. Rename this to year. If you want to be a bit more fancy about it, you can create a calculated field, year, second version. And this is maybe if you have a bit more advanced data. So in this case, if you do have, you need to get rid of all the alpha. Oh, sorry, all the numbers. No, sorry. You want to keep the numbers, get rid of the letters. Then you can use a regular expression like this, and then it will just get rid of everything like you have in here. Maybe you would like to add in a trim as well to make sure that you don't have any spaces. So if I save this one, you see that this one also works pretty nice. So this is the cleaning of my some of my historical data. The 2018 data looks quite fine, but that was also the year where they started doing semi-finals in Eurovision, and I only would like to look at the countries that got to the finals. So I'm going to right click and keep only the final data. Otherwise I will have the same countries multiple times and have to make sure that there's no trouble when I connect these. Finally, the news data looks pretty nice. We have the different countries. We can have a look at Norway again. We have the participant and the song, so we have even newer data in there to make sure that this looks good. 2019, 21, 22, 23, 24. In 2020, there was no Eurovision due to COVID, so that's not in there. So now I need to combine all of these four data sources. I can drag it up here, and I'm not going to join them. I'm going to do a union because now all of them looks very similar. So I'm going to end up with one table. So I'm going to add first a union like this for these different steps. Normally, if I have a better time or more time, I would have changed obviously the names in here. So clean 1, 2, 3, 4. I would call them what the data source is. So this could be 2019-24. This could be 57 to 2009, etc. I'm going to add in all of my scores to the same union. And then if you like to play Tetris, this is where the fun starts, because now you have all the different sources. Obviously, one of them has a proper name, the other ones doesn't, but due to time, I'm going to skip that. But I have the rank, which is called rank in two of these places. It's called place and rank in another one. So then I just click on the plus. And then I have place over here as well. So make sure that the rank is selected and the place, and then all of these are combined into the same field. Same goes for points and point. Tableau even suggests this one, so it understands that these should be the same one. I do have the country and country region. So apparently it was called country region in one place. Put these also together. And for the rest of them, this second version of a year, we don't care about this one. This one, if I look at the pivot names, we don't need this. So this could also be, we could have got rid of this from before. Let's have a look at the result. Let's get rid of, first of all, the ones that I don't need, because we don't need to bring them all the way to the end of our data or the output. And we see down here now that we do have something that are limited, or a lot of nulls with the stage, because we did have finals from one place and the other ones don't have the stages. So we could either just get rid of the entire thing or change this name into finals as well. So that's the easy way to get rid of nulls, just rename the nulls to something. But then again, everything is everything is final in anyway in here. So I'll get rid of this. I'll get rid of this one as well, and then we're back to what we really need, which is the years, which I'll bring to the left, and then the countries, which I bring next to it. And then I can have a look to see, for example, in 2024, these are the countries, the participant, I'm not sure what the RO, return on investment kind of thing over here. We have the song, the rank, and the points. So now we have this data, and now I would like to move this one to, or join this with my locations. So let's have a look at the location first. I have the years, I have the countries, and then we can see that Norway has hosted the Eurovision 3 times, meaning that they have won 3 times, because if you win, you get to host the next year. We also see that the broadcaster, Norsk Rikskringkasting, or NRK, is spelled in multiple ways. So that also means that in the broadcaster window, I have 45 unique broadcasters. BBC is spelled multiple ways, so we need to fix this as well. And the easy way to fix this is to go into clean. First, I'm going to just make everything uppercase. So I'll go from 45 to 38 broadcasters. I'm getting there and closer, but I still see that BBC and British broadcasting, etc., is not the same. So I also go to clean, to group values, and I can do a based on either pronunciation, spelling, common characters. So you can test all of them, see which one gives the best result, but not necessarily will it give the exact result. So you might need to do some adjustments in here. Let's just try for pronunciation first. We see that DR and D.R. is now grouped together. But BBC, Tableau was not clever enough, but if I select BBC, I can just tick off BBC like this, and then I can scroll through the other ones to see, is there anyone else that should be grouped together? You should, of course, know your data to make sure that you know which one you should put together, etc. So I'm just going to do a couple of these more, and then I'm happy with the result for now. Another thing I would like to do is that I have a date. This is the day the actual Eurovision final was held, but it's called, or it's an ABC field. I don't now need to go into create a calculation to make sure that this is converted into a date. Hopefully Tableau is clever enough. So if I just click on the ABC, I convert it to a date. I have now a calendar over here, and I can also see that I do have a proper date into my view. Tableau also gives you recommendations on what else I can do. Can change the country to the data role of country, region, etc., so that it's even easier to put it on a map when you go into Tableau. Now I need to connect these two to each other, so that I can see that in Sweden, in Malmö, this year there was this final, and I have my step down here where I done all the results. So now I'm going to change this results, change the name. The name is a bit limited on length, but there's always the possibility of also adding a description with 200 characters. So don't wait till tomorrow or the next day to give these proper names or to adding these descriptions, because you will forget what you actually have done. And since my location is way over there, I'm just going to move it down a bit, and maybe I'm going to put all of these together. It's another tip, just right click on these and then group them together. So we have the group in here, which will then be the results. And if you would like to reuse these results later, you can also save this entire thing as a flow on its own. But now I need to join these together. So I'm going to drag it over here to join. And Tableau suggests year and year, which is perfect because that's exactly what I want to join it together on. And you have this beautiful Venn diagram, so you can decide if you want to do a left join, inner join, whatever type of join you need. In this case, I would like to have an inner join, and then you get the summary of the results. We see that there's one that is excluded, and that's 1956. And why is that? Well, in 1956, I don't have the results from that year, but I do have the location for that specific year. So I could have a look at the mismatched values or just the mismatched values for any side of these. Now I have some beautiful data. Adding a clean step, I always do that just to have a look. It looks like it's okay, but then again, I have year one, country one, and I have year again. The reason why I have country twice is that we have the country of the participant country and we have the hosting country. So we should rename this one so we don't get confused. So this is the hosting country. And if you do a lot of joins, you'll end up with the same field multiple times. The easiest way to get rid of them is to do -1, which is the abbreviation Tableau adds. Just get rid of it. And if you have joined multiple rows, you can also get rid of multiple fields, multiple tables. You can also do -2, -3, etc. So that means I'm done with my data. I could make an output step, or I can just make it simple for now. I can right-click, preview this in Tableau Desktop. It runs the entire flow, goes really fast because the data is really tiny. And I think that I'm getting very close to my allotted time now as well. So now let's have a look at the different countries, and we're going to check now for did this country come in last. So I'm going to create a calculation, but first I'm just going to add in the years. It looks like there was a bit few countries in here actually, so I think that let me just double check. That's always fun when you do these live on stage, and for some reason there's something missing. Did I add in countries? All the countries are here, right? Even Norway. Yeah, sorry, I did the I think I just did the wrong country. I renamed the wrong country, it looks like, because those are the hosts. This is the one I should look at. Sorry about that. That's how it goes when you do it a bit too fast. So I do have my year, and I can also put in my rank in here. So we see this is Denmark 3rd, 8th, 5th. Let's have a look at Norway, 4th, 7th, 11th, etc. But how can I know if they came last or not? So I'm going to put everything into one view. I'm going to put the rank on color, so we see that the darker the color, the higher the position. I'm going to create a calculated field, and the calculation will be finished. That's really difficult, right? Last question mark, and then I've cheated a bit, so I'm going to say rank if for each year find the highest rank. So if there's 25 countries, 30 countries, find the highest one, and if the rank for that particular country, then it's true. So if I say okay, like this, and let's put this on, we can put it on size, for example, so that the true ones are the ones that we are looking for. I'm just going to keep only the true ones, make the size way larger, and see that there's a lot of those dots over here for Norway. And if I click on the tooltip, 13 times Norway has ended last, and that is actually the worst in history ever. We are just one point or one finish last above Germany, which also are pretty bad. Or no, sorry, not Germany. They only have 7. So we are not that good, apparently. I can't understand why, because the music from Norway is beautiful. So the last thing I'm going to show you, just going to go back to this one. So this will be, I guess this will be shared as well, but there's a lot of beautiful visualizations on Eurovision on Tableau Public. And the one that I just want to show you now, because there was somebody who's visited Sweden, and Norwegians don't like Sweden. So this is the last thing I'm going to show you. Who Loves Your Country by Nir Smigla. And if I now select Norway, I can then see who has given us most points. So it's beautiful to see that Iceland and Sweden has given us most points, but see that Sweden has given Norway points 40 times, 4.8 points. And the most you can give is 12. Let's switch this around and look at those damn Swedes. They've given Denmark the most points, and Norway has received 7 points from us over 42 times. They give us 3 points, we give them 7. So next year, I hope we don't give them anything. So that's the conclusion of my talk, which is probably way too long because I love to talk. Let's see if there's any questions. I'm going to stop share before we move over to Wilf. I see that you have answered as well, Jared, right? When people have asked questions.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, in that case, we will hand the floor over to Wilf, who has 20 tips in 20 minutes. So excited to see this. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me go there, share that. It's not very keen on sharing. Hang on.
It's probably because you're in the Salesforce tower, right?
That'd be it. I am literally floor 29 in London. Let's see if we can do this another way. You did make me an admin, Jared, didn't you?
Yeah, we should. Let me check just to make sure. Yeah, you have presenter mode.
All the way down below the videos, you should have the chat DMs and the share screen button. Do you find that one?
I've got the share screen button and I'm clicking on the share button. Nothing is happening.
Yes, it doesn't pop up because you should, on my screen at least, it pops up. You can select the Chrome tab or whatever browser you have, a window or an entire screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to share entire screen and the share button is doing nothing. Let's see if we can find another way to do it.
If the presentation that you shared, now it works. Perfect. Do the
I
backup.
put that into presentation mode. Can we see that?
Yep, got it.
Super. Okay, thank you very much. Right, so 20 tips in 20 minutes. I should be able to keep to time with a bit of luck. A little bit about me just to start off with. Professionally, I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry for somewhere over 30 years. I used to be a sales rep. I was in business intelligence in the days of Windows 3.1, and I've gone all the way through to Windows 11 in spreadsheet land from Lotus 123 through to all the different iterations of Excel. For the last 10 years, I've been a consultant in Salesforce Analytics using Tableau from versions 9 onwards, and have used Prep pretty much from launch to now. I'm currently on 23.3. I'm also chair of the UK British Business Intelligence Association. I run the Bobby Committee, which is the awards committee. And every year we like to give out awards recognizing excellence in business intelligence and healthcare excellence. Personally, I've been married 36 years. We love to dance, my wife and I. We do ballroom and Latin and Argentine tango. So just showing off a bit of tango actually in Argentina in that picture. I'm also a musician.
Excuse me, Will. You're sharing the, not the, yeah, the other one. You're sharing the notes
Okay.
version. So we didn't see the beautiful tango picture.
Oh dear, hang on. Let me see if I can share the right one. Let's put that back into presentation mode. User group, let's share screen, window, PowerPoint slideshow. How's that? How's that?
We got it.
There we go. Right, yes, that's us, Argentine tango dancing in Argentina. I'm a musician. I play saxophone, flute, I do fishing, and I play games on my PS5 these days. I'm also slightly obsessed with Strictly Come Dancing, which is the UK version of Dancing with the Stars. So I have a Tableau public site which analyzes every single dance from the original series right up to now. So that's me. The objective, I hope, what I can do is maybe give each of you a couple of tips you've not come across before to just save you a little bit of time. If I can save you 5 minutes a day each, that's probably 2 hours a month that you can go and do more exciting things than get frustrated with your prep flows. So number one, logging in, particularly where you're using Tableau Cloud data and have to go through the MFA process. Don't know about you, but I find that super frustrating. But there is a workaround to open a prep flow on Prep Desktop without having to go through the MFA, which is to open Prep, then click the Open button, and then navigate to where your prep flow is and open it that way. When you open Prep, the Prep app itself, it will already be logged into your server, so you don't have to go through MFA. If you want to open a second flow, just type Control-N or go to File, New, and you can open another flow and go through the same process. It's way, way quicker than messing about with multi-factor authentication and everything else. If you one tip is don't use all the little quick shortcuts in the big boxes, the recents, because it will then force you to log in. So just use Open or Open a Flow. If you do need to go to use multi-factor authentication, not all authenticators are equal. The one I would recommend, if you have any choice, depending on your corporate policies, you may not be able to download them, but the Salesforce authenticator is definitely better than, say, the Microsoft one, because you don't have to keep typing numbers in. So typing in 6 numbers every time, real pain. With the Salesforce one, you can just tap approve and it logs you in automatically. Prep doesn't allow it to use location services, but if you're logging into Tableau Cloud or if you're logging into Salesforce, the Salesforce authenticator will also use location services on your phone, which means that if you log in regularly from the same place, it will then offer to automatically log you in if you're logging in from your phone in that position. It doesn't send the location to cloud, so it's just using your local data on the phone. So it is a good authenticator. If you've got to use an authenticator, that will be the one I would go for. Oops, hit my wheel. Tore already talked to this a little bit. Absolutely annotate every step in your prep flow as you go along, because the number of times I've gone back to a step in a prep flow and forgotten exactly what I did and then had to read through all the little change steps to remind myself is too many to talk about. So I'm now very disciplined about logging things in. As Tore said, the actual naming of the preps, of the clean steps and things, is a bit limited in how many characters it will display. You can type more in, but they disappear. But the little notes box underneath gives you a lot more scope. However, it's not a rich text box, so it doesn't wrap. It just wraps text. It won't allow you to put in line breaks or anything else. the trick I use is it's 22 characters wide, that text box. So if you type in a row of full stops, you can then put breaks into those notes, which makes them a lot more readable when you come back. So really keeps things clear, makes it easy to read when you come back. Number 4, Tableau Prep is a bit like a child with a brand new box of crayons. It just, everything changes color every time you put a different step, a new join or anything else. It makes it very unreadable and very difficult to follow different lines of the flow through the process. So I would always recommend a limited color palette. Now, entirely up to you what you use. My general rule of thumb is my main flow through the middle will be a sort of blue. Any reference tables, so if I'm using tables to link as lookup tables, I would color them gray. And then any tables that are used bringing in client data, I will color those green. So that looks something like that. As you can see, here's a prep flow where through the middle is my main flow leading to my output from my original input step. That's all in blue. There's some client data coming in here in green and some more down here. And then there's a couple of reference tables which come in here and join on. And you can see the main flow stays blue. If it's a lookup table or something, I've colored it gray. So it just makes it a lot more readable. It's a lot easier to follow where the main flow is within the overall scheme, and also to understand it quickly without necessarily having to read through the source data or anything else, what type of data you're joining in at each step. That said, sometimes you may want to put in multiple colors. So this is a flow I did, which is generating a whole series of outputs for a client who's pan-European, and they want to, from the single data source, they want an individual output for each country. So I've color-coded each country so I can follow that through. So again, you use color coding wisely and specifically to make the overall flow more readable. Minimize your data from the start. So when you first pull in your data to the prep flow, immediately kill off as many fields as you can that you're not going to need. So that once you're running the rest of the prep flow through, whenever it's iterating, when you're adding steps, it'll refresh much more quickly. And it also means you're not pulling data through that you don't need in the final output. And when you're doing that, I would always, within the import step, out one field at a time. If you've worked with Salesforce at all, so if you've imported data directly from a Salesforce system, you will know there are myriad fields in every table that are absolutely not used by the particular client you're working with. And there's a whole bunch of fields in there that are designed as kind of reference fields, update fields, things for audit and that kind of thing. So you can click them all out. Now you can shift and click to take out blocks of data. And if you absolutely know you're never going to need to use one of the fields within that block again, go ahead and do that. The number of times I've done that and then had to undo that step to bring one more field through and then exclude all the other fields again. It's come to the point now where, frankly, it's worth my while doing 200 little X's to get rid of the fields before they ever come into the rest of the report, because if I want one field back, I can just bring that field back by getting rid of that cross out. Doing it in the import step also means that the field doesn't disappear, so you can still search for it when you want, if you need to bring it back, and you can still then replace it within the flow using I'll find it with the search button. Now that said, there is one downside to doing that, is if you replace the data source, all of those steps will be forgotten. So something to bear in mind, that if you do drag a new data source in, and you can just bring in a new data source from the source field, drop it on top of the original one to replace it, you'll have to go through that step again. So that is probably the only downside to doing everything one at a time. Nomenclature. Use really consistent nomenclature. We have been working recently, we've been moving all of our clients out of a SQL server that we held on premise into Azure, and then pulling all their data through in cloud. And we've got 25 different clients in there. Whenever you're running prep flows, prep steps, be really consistent in terms of the nomenclature used. So, use the client's initials, use the data type you're using. Make it really clear and always make them the same, because when you want to search for them within the cloud or within any of your data sources, it'll be much, much easier, and you'll be really glad you did it in the future. So consistent nomenclature, absolutely a top tip from me. And having said that, the search tool within the data sources, so this is searching for data within our cloud instance. It will search, it's a fuzzy search, so it will search for anything within the name. So here I've just looked for Azure Live Links, and you can see it's brought out the very end of the data source name where it's got Azure Live Links. So it's a really powerful search tool. You can search for different bits of data, but again, coming back to the nomenclature stuff, the more clarity you have in your original nomenclature, the better, easier you'll find that search. Laying out prep flows doesn't always have to be vertical. So we've got a whole bunch of really titchy tiny steps here that essentially take the data from the Azure server and drop it into the Tableau cloud server, so that we can then build off all our prep flows from the end of that. They're nearly all, one-step flows. There's not much processing going on. As Tore said, I've got a clean step in here because I like to look at the data before I generate the output. But because they're really short, I've just put them all on the grid pattern, so I can see them all still on one screen, and I'm not having to scroll up and down. So the grid pattern within prep means that you can lay things out in all sorts of different ways. Groups. So Tore said you can group stuff, and they are very nice, and it does compress a prep flow and make things look a lot tidier. But if you expand a group within a prep flow and it's got lots of other bits around the outside, it will shove them all out of the way, and then you'll have a right old job dragging them back in to make your prep flow look tidy. This may just be me, but I'm one of those people who does like everything to be nice and symmetrical and in a line and easy to see and follow. And if stuff keeps getting popped out the way, I get a bit annoyed. So try and make sure you've finished anything you have to do within the group before you create the group. On that note, if you need to change something within the group or add a data step or do anything else, ungroup it, because otherwise prep has a tendency to crash on you. So if you need to edit anything happening within the group, just ungroup it first and then group it back up again afterwards. Something I never really looked at until fairly recently was the little zoom box in the corner. It floats just above all the data windows and things, but it's really neat and handy. So number one, you can change the zoom with the plus and minus buttons, so you can zoom out if you need to try and see the whole of your prep flow, or zoom in to focus on particular bits. The second one is that little box there. If you've moved your prep flow around and everything's got a bit out of whack and it's all drifting about on the screen, click the little box. It'll tidy everything back up into the corner and reset it all for you. So that's a really cool little thing. And then thirdly, click on that percentage icon and it will reset your zoom to 100%. So again, if you've been zooming in and out and flying around on your window, those will help you to come back to sanity, shall we say. Nulls in numeric data. Null, as you probably know, is a nightmare in numeric data because it propagates all over the place in calculations. By default, Tableau will summarize any numeric fields. So it will show you a bar chart of the number of times that value is appearing. That makes it impossible to get rid of nulls. But if you change the setting to detail instead of summary, you can then find your null values, and you can right click and change that for a 0 if that's what you want to replace your nulls with. So assuming you want the nulls to continue to come through and you don't just want to get rid of them by filtering them out. It's a really easy way just to get rid of any nulls in a numeric field. Copying and pasting. You can copy and paste in steps. So when you look at the little change window down the left-hand side with all the little calculations and changes and things that you've made, you can copy and paste any of those steps to put them somewhere else in the flow. Really useful little tip. You can only copy one at a time, so that's maybe a bit of a downside, but you can, if you think, oh, I've got all of these steps that actually I could move further up and which would make the flow more efficient, you can copy and paste them upstream in your flow to move them somewhere else. Don't forget to delete the old ones, or you'll potentially get errors in terms of duplicating or removing fields. But really handy tip, and I never realized it until quite recently that you could even do it. Joining duplicate column. Tore pointed out the fact that if you had two fields with the same field name, Tableau will by default stick a -1 or a -1 on one of those field names, or a -2 or a -3. And he showed quite very clearly you can delete the one with the -1. However, you may not always want to delete the -1 version. You may want to delete one of the others. So one of the things that we do a lot in our prep flows is that we will add prefixes to some of our reference fields, which is really easily done. You can do it, just use the rename fields column option, but we'll put a prefix on, then we do the join, then we've got absolute clarity in the next clean step what the source of those two columns was, or those two fields, so you know exactly which one you want to keep and which one you want to get rid of. So you can add the columns in, add the prefixes in, get rid of any fields you don't want, and then the renamed columns can be used again in order to get rid of any fields that you don't want. And using the wildcard, it's really easy to find them. The other nice thing about the rename fields option is that it allows you to be selective about which fields you want to rename. So you can add your prefix, you can automatically rename your fields, put your field in there, but these tick boxes allow you to deselect some of the fields. So if you don't want to add that prefix to one of your fields, you can clear that, and that field would automatically then just flow through into your data set, and you won't then have to mess about renaming it or pulling it out afterwards. Parameters. Parameters are really useful. We have essentially in our big prep flow, we have this one massive source of data, which we then split off with different sales data, different market data, depending on which client we're feeding. That's all managed using parameters within the system. So we have what we call a project deliverable ID that links to one of the reference tables, which says for this client, their project deliverable ID is 106, and that means they get these products, they get these outlets, etc., etc. So you can just use the parameter. That then means I can use exactly the same prep flow because it's using the same source data and pretty much outputting the same end product with a different parameter for a different client. So it really speeds things up. You will have to hard code parameters. So within the data set, if you get a new client, you need to add in a new project deliverable ID, you will need that add it into your parameter list. So just to be aware, they're not dynamic, as you can't pull them off a field like you can in Tableau just yet. But otherwise, really useful, really make life a lot simpler. And also, if you're using prep conductor with a parameter, the conductor will remember the relevant parameter for each prep flow, so you won't have to tell it anything else. You just get it to run each of those flows sequentially as required. Don't trust it. So I guess it probably goes for everything AI right now, but Prep AI makes a bunch of assumptions about your data when you import it. just double check what it's doing and how it's doing it. Sometimes it'll see some null values on a date field and it'll assume it's a string field. And you know, so make sure you look at that, make sure you change those data types as you come in. One of my little bugbears is if I do a date trunk to month, instead of it being a date field by default, it's a date time field, and I don't understand why, because I've got rid of all the time and day data. Anyway, that's just me having a moan. I'm very good at having a moan. But having said that, also let prep do the work. So have a look at these little recommendations that appear in the grey bar. It'll talk about different things about what you may want to get rid of, whether you want to split values. It can be really useful. But again, bear in mind, point 17, don't always trust it. Final or penultimate thought, prep is never tidies its room. So whenever you run preview in Tableau desktop, as Tore did earlier for his prep flow, it will create a Tableau extract, which will then be lying around in your My Tableau prep repository folder forever. So just once a month or something like that, go in there, highlight everything and delete them all, because otherwise it's purely going to clutter up your disk space. So it's just worth keeping an eye on that. And finally, I do a lot of stuff, I iterate stuff, I change it, I publish it to the cloud, I run the prep flow in the cloud, I reopen my desktop workbook, which is linked to my cloud data source, and for some reason it hasn't refreshed or it hasn't read the data yet. Now, you can double click the data source, force a refresh, and then go back. And then sometimes you have to right click again and refresh within Tableau desktop to get fields, new fields to reappear. Can be a bit of a pain. And also it makes me nervous because suddenly every other data source sits there with a red exclamation mark because I haven't forced a refresh on it. There is another way to force the refresh. When you publish a data source into Tableau Cloud, you can then go to the data source, create a new workbook from that data source. You don't actually have to do anything with the workbook, but just forcing the workbook to create will update whatever bits of the cloud need to be updated for your Tableau desktop to then read all the new fields. So it's a quick and easy way of forcing fields to appear when you're wondering where on earth they are and why they haven't appeared when you know you've run your prep flow and everything. So was that 20 minutes? It probably was just about 20 minutes. And thank you very much. I hope that's been useful, and I hope everybody's got a couple of things out of there that maybe will help them tomorrow.
Awesome.
Questions.
Let's see, a couple of questions. You have any favorite web scraper to include public data sources?
No, I must admit I don't. And most of our stuff that we work with is in-house data. So, Tore, do you have anything?
Sorry, no, I tend to get colleagues who are better in the coding world to help me, or I use ChatGPT to try to make some code. But one great place is, as I said before, go to Tableau Public if there's something you're interested in, because the data is there.
Matt's asking, what do you mean by not dynamic? If you mean the parameters, Matt, yeah, you have to type each parameter into the parameter list within the prep flow. Whereas in Tableau now, you can tell it to refresh parameters on load and that sort of thing. That's not available at the moment in prep.
Awesome. All right. Well, yeah, those were some great sessions, some great tips. I'm learning new things all the time in prep, so it's always good to see how others are using it and finding little shortcuts and things to speed up the workflow. Like I said, the recording will be available shortly after we end the session. And yeah, make sure you keep up with the prep newsletter, submit your sessions if you've got some other tips or use cases, different interesting ways that you're using prep, and you want to share those with the group. Submit those to us so we can get you on the schedule. And yeah, we will do this again next time. But also, I see one more question for Wilf. Do you enforce discipline on the order of joins?
Oh, that's a good question. Occasionally, when required, I suppose. It's a selective thing. And probably I would, if I'm joining in terms of I'm trying to cut down the amount of data that comes through, I'll use the reference table that reduces the data most as the first join, and then the smaller ones after that, so that I'm trying to minimize the amount of data at every step.
Awesome. Well, we will do this again next time. Thank you everyone for joining and for sticking with us through the whole thing.
Yeah, thanks very much.